So, egusi soup is it's like one of my favorite soups. And the thing is, there are so many ways you can make it, but this particular method I want to show you is my all-time favorite. I learned it from my mama. So, let's go. Now, my oil, I add extra oil, but I mean, you can't let it go to waste. So, one way to melt it is to put it over fire, just low heat to let the oil melt, and then I poured it in the pot and it wasn't enough, so I had to add more. And this is me just adding some more because this method actually requires you using a lot of oil. Now, this is the melon seed, also known as the egusi, and I blended it in the market, but you can also do it at home if you have a blender using the dry cup. And then after doing that, I mixed it with water just to form a paste, as you can see. And then when I'm fine with the consistency, I put it into the oil. The oil needs to be hot. This one was not hot enough, but who cares? I already started putting it in. So you put it in the oil and let it fry. Part of why I love this method is actually because of this frying process. Now, the different ways you cook this soup has like the outcome is different, the taste is different, and that is why this is my preferred method. Because of all the different ways I've cooked egusi soup, I prefer the taste that I get when I use this method. Now, you fry this egusi it's actually very time consuming, and one way to know that it is properly fried is when it is no longer sticking to the pot. I mean, I'm using a non-stick pot and you can see that it is still sticking. Anyways, my hands were aching me at this point and I was like, I beg, it has fried enough. When you're done frying the melon, you add your pepper. Some people use a pepper mix, that is habanero pepper and tomatoes and the rest. I don't add tomatoes to egusi when I'm making it, mostly because I don't like the taste. Like anytime I add tomatoes to egusi when I'm making it and I eat that soup, I tend to throw up. I don't know if it's just me, but I don't like adding tomatoes to it. So I use just pepper and onions. And then, egusi, it's like a thickener. So you need to add a lot of water. So that is my meat stock that I added. And at this point, everything goes. That is my giant periwinkle. I stole it from a friend. And then crayfish. And then we call it iru. Some people call it dawa dawa. Some people call it locust beans. But I love this. Like, it's one thing I can't do without when cooking egusi or vegetable soup or okra soup. I just love iru. And then dry fish. This is like the dried catfish. I think they call it Meduguri fish over here in Abuja. Like I said, at this point, everything goes. I'm adding the pomo. I prefer to cut my pomo into tiny bite sizes. Some people like the whole big pomo just soaking up the soup, but tiny bite sizes. I like it when I put the food, the muscle of swallow in my mouth, and now pomo is there, and then I bite it and I'm happy. But that's just the way I like it. And then I'm adding my meat. Most of the time for my cooking, I prefer to have prepared everything in bulk. It is not the day I want to cook, I start boiling the meat and everything. When I buy meat, I buy a lot, boil it and keep it in the freezer, ready for use anytime I want to make it. So the meat was already boiled and in the freezer, and then I just brought it out. And now I'm adding my seasoning. When cooking egusi too, I usually don't use too many seasoning or spices. Just Maggi and salt is enough for me. And remember, the meat stock already has all the spices you can think of. At this point, let it boil. Even when you're seeing it, you'll be happy. Now, when I'm making egusi soup, I use a mix of vegetables. I use scent leaf, I use bitter leaf, and I use ugu. If I have more, if I have uziza, if I have all the other vegetables, I would have added it. But the three basic one I use is the bitter leaf, the scent leaf, and the ugu leaves. And I love it. I don't know, I just love it. So I've added the bitter leaf, I added the scent leaf, and this is the ugu leaf, and then I give it a good mix. Can you see how the thing is looking? Can you see how it's turning out? See, anytime I'm in a good mood, anytime I want to collect money from my husband, this is how I cook it. Because once he eats it, it's just gonna be like, baby, send me your account number.